Hello, everyone, and welcome to Claris Community Live at our special late, for me at least, in the daytime, so that we could have Jamie join us from Australia, where it is early Friday morning. And I hope you have seen the success story we released last month with Mobile Tyre Shop and Jamie that talks about all the amazing things they are doing with FileMaker and how FileMaker has really been an engine for growing their very unique business. So Jamie, why don't you start and just tell us about your business. And while we do that, Angie's got some poll questions going. And just for everyone who's on, we're going to do a slightly different format this time. Jamie has a presentation, so it's kind of in chapters. So every now and then we'll take a break. So please drop your questions in chat and I will interrupt Jamie at good points to ask questions.
Yeah,
so take it away.
So thank you, Rosemary. Yeah, it's been a great journey with FileMaker. I was using FileMaker back in the 90s, so I'm one of those ones who sort of remembered what it was like. And when the opportunity came up in the business here at Mobile Tyre Shop, I sort of reached out to it, still not understanding it totally because I'd used it so long ago. But an interesting journey of learning how to develop a system for a business from scratch, and it's been great.
Well, I'm just going to take a peek at the poll. And not getting a lot of answers yet, but it looks like we have about a even split between business leaders and developers. So it's about a 50-50 in the people who have responded. And for those of you who haven't found it, the polling is under the 3 dots in the lower right corner in WebEx. So, and what was our other question? Angie, what was the other poll question? Oh, what do you want to learn? And I'm not seeing those results quite yet. But Jamie, why don't you just start with your story and then we can.
Yeah, I'll share my screen and start that. So the presentation I do on FileMaker is called Creating a Tyre Shop for the Digital Age. And the reason for that is the tyres are one of those things that, is not the most attractive. So I was shy of talking about tyres until I realized how it is such a traditional industry, tyres. And what we've actually done is really modernized the tyre industry. And so creating a tyre shop for the digital age was something I thought was quite appropriate. And I'll introduce you to Eugene. Eugene's actually the traditional tyre shop owner, and he understands that online sales is happening and things are moving on, and he's trying to get his tyre shop with the times. This is Eugene.
Tyre store that comes to you? That's a great idea. I mean, there are plenty of online tyre stores with deals that seem unbelievable, but then they need delivery. And how and when are you going to fit them? There's always a hidden cost. That's why I've made my tyre shop mobile. Wait, bloody hell, what's that? Mobile Tyre Shop? A tyre shop for the digital age? How did I fit all this in there? Now I look like an idiot. Can't even do a U-turn in this thing.
So that's Eugene. And Eugene's aware that he's in the traditional tyre store model. That's all about a product that's a grudge purchase. The place is always inconvenient, no matter how convenient he tries to make it. People talk tech. when you get to the tyre store. The process of the traditional tyre store is all about waiting there, waiting to order your tyres or make sure they've got them in, waiting when they're fitting them, and even just the time to get there and back. What a lot of people don't realise, particularly in Australia, is that most tyre stores are actually affiliated with manufacturers. So they can't actually have all the brands. They're actually limited by the choice. And so it's all a lesser range of product. Promotions are not so transparent because you're there in the forecourt. So really, what does it matter? You're there to buy tyres. You'll just get whatever they sort of suggest. And the price is obscure. They don't really have price labels on the shelves of tyres when you walk in there. So we say this was accepted and still is, frankly, but we theorise that Australians, and I imagine this is worldwide too, Australians expect to be able to shop for goods and services whenever and wherever is most convenient. It can't cost more, they won't pay more, and the tyre industry hasn't kept up with this change. Online sellers, websites that sell tyres, on the other hand, are yet to recognise safe and confidence-inspiring fitment by just sending you to any tyre store. And we really believe, what's the point of buying tyres online if you've then got to go to a tyre store? So change isn't coming, we believe. It's actually on your doorstep. And why is this so important with tyres in particular? What a lot of people don't realise is that tyres in Australia, for instance, $5.4 billion of tyre sales each year. And we estimate that to grow to 6.1 billion by 2028. And in that $5.4 billion industry, we believe Mobile Tyre Shop, for instance, it was doing next to nothing before 2018, is now achieving around 11% of all online purchases of that $5.4 billion industry. And we see that in the UK, for instance, they're selling around 18% of tyres online. So we see this market growing substantially from around the 4% at the moment to 18% by 2028 if we're a few years behind the UK. Now that's a massive market that's open for online sales. But also in Australia, which is happening worldwide as well, is that mobile food delivery, for instance, food delivery for takeaways is around 60% in Australia. So if tyres could be delivered like food delivery that people here are used to, then we could potentially see anywhere up to 666 million Australian dollars for tyres fitted mobile in the next few years. So it's a massive opportunity for us. And our belief is that a business that can put the web sales together with mobile will be a game changer. And being able to offer that service on the same day is where it is going to be a massive improvement for us. And so you can see what's involved in getting a business like this to actually really play a big part. So how we choose to win is by delivering that experience on site and online. We believe that customers will see us as the best for tyres. But to do this, we need a seamless shopping platform. We need all the products and all the promotions, automated delivery and fitting service, expert fitment, and of course, support beyond doubt. And so in Australia now, we are the only company that you can go online, select your tyres, and have us turn up in the same day and fit them by that same one company. So today our brand is synonymous in Australia with mobile fitting. And to highlight that, I'll just show you a 30-second TV commercial which actually shows this to the Australian public.
A tyre shop that comes to you. It sounds impossible, right? But it couldn't be easier. Mobile Tyre Shop. The tyre shop that comes to you.
That's Mobile Tyre Shop.
And I really needed you last January when I destroyed a tire in a New England winter pothole. But yes, and the logistics of getting my car from my house to the closest tire shop, which is 3 blocks away, was quite challenging.
Just 3 blocks, yeah.
Yeah, 3 blocks if you walk, a mile if you drive, because of a
Yeah.
giant roundabout and one-way streets. Yeah, so thank you for the introduction to the business and the business challenge.
Yeah.
See any questions yet? And I don't have any questions. So like, can you tell us a little bit more about how you got started with FileMaker? I know you mentioned you used it back in the 90s, but what's your
Yeah.
history and how did you come to FileMaker at Mobile Tyre Shop?
Yeah, so I was a musician just out of high school, and ended up loving a Mac computer doing music, and realized I can do other things on it, and started booking other acts, music acts, and realized I needed something. I hate repetition in work, so I realized I needed something to stop having to write contracts for artists and venues. So I created a agents database with one of the original FileMakers, and that was my introduction to it. And so all through business since then, whenever I needed an address book or some tool in the business that there wasn't an app for, I'd just make it in FileMaker. But my use of FileMaker was not, I'm definitely not a developer, but it gave me a little bit of an understanding. So I used to call it my superpower. I'd always have it on my Mac, and in different things I need, I'd just whip out this tool to do things quickly. And that became something of interest when we were running some new software here at Mobile Tyre Shop, and the developers of it said, "Hey, can you scope it for me?" What I was asking them to do. And I thought, I don't know how to scope it, but I can make it on FileMaker. So I actually built a relationship database to show them the interrelated relationships. And when I showed them a couple of weeks later, I was really proud of what I'd done for these developers, and said, here, I've got it. This is what we need. And they said, we can't do that. So that's what got me on the road to FileMaker for Mobile Tyre Shop, thinking, geez, if they can't do that and FileMaker can, maybe there's more in this FileMaker. So that's when I started investigating it.
Okay. And actually, I just got a request to share the poll. So I'm going to hope this works and share out with everybody. And you may have to reopen the polling tab to see it. And unfortunately, I cannot figure out how to show all of the individual results to the free text question. So I was hoping we would have a little more on the what people want to get out of this session, but I am not seeing how to view it.
Rosemary, I'm happy to read out a few of the things people are looking to get out of this.
Perfect. Thank you, Angie.
Yeah, so some people are asking about learning about FileMaker and its creative uses, looking at IT to increase our sales and efficiencies, learning to see how Jamie motivated every worker in his company to use FileMaker, insights on creating a mobile version solution, tips and tricks, and curious to see if there are things that people can take away for their clients or to better serve their own customers.
All right, well, I think we have a lot of that lined up in the presentation. And there's one question, someone wants to see a demo. I don't know, Jamie, if you can do a quick demo either right now or at the end.
Yeah.
Or
probably at the end would be good. Yeah.
Okay. And there's also a question about inventory control, and I know that we have that queued up later. So sit tight.
that was a big deal here. Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't you go back to talk about the journey?
Okay. So from all that, a bit like we said, the theory is easy. I say that the reality is a little bit harder. And in fact, we have a saying, Travis, the CEO, and myself, between each other. We always said, we seem to be able to take this really simple idea and make it very complicated. So understanding the business model was, it took me years to really work out this idea Travis had, because he founded it originally, of doing mobile and putting it with e-commerce. How to make that efficient is actually very complicated. And I was from car dealerships, so to come into tires and see a tire size and realize that a tire industry has a metric size for the tire, then they use a percentage of that metric number and top it off with an imperial number. You realize that it could get a little bit complicated, this business, if that's what they do. And when I actually map out the complexities in the business and try to explain to people where the complexities come from, it really stems from us being involved with the manufacturers. So you saw in the traditional model where all stores are really affiliated with manufacturers or a manufacturer or a selected few. We really wanted to show every customer every tire on offer and all the offers. So it's probably more like a marketplace before we actually knew what a marketplace was. So what happens is once you introduce the manufacturer in the relationship between us and the consumer, you start looking at the details of that. So in manufacturing, you've got all the sourcing, the transport of their products to us, because it's all about being just in time. Their promotions and their pricings, they're feeding that into this system. Every couple of hours, we're getting updates from all the manufacturers. And then on top of that, you've got warranties and returns, and how do you make that efficient? Not to mention those customers and our technicians out on the road and what that involves. You then add to it your typical business functions of finance and what they need. Customer support, so being able to quote customers and give them advice and update on where we're at with things. Vehicles, just geofencing vehicles and tracking them adds complexity. And not to mention our B2B customers, our business customers, our VIP fleet customers. So we do a lot of jobs for rental car companies and other vehicle related industries. And so they have special pricing, and this couldn't be done without what we've done with FileMaker, being able to price every customer individually on, I think we've got 27,000 SKUs now in our system. And so being able to do that very quickly for each customer individually has been amazing. And then of course your operations. And so this story takes a little bit of a twist, because to bring our business to life, we actually didn't turn to FileMaker, which is what I alluded to earlier. We actually did what I believe a lot of businesses do when they're growing, and they look at, the systems that are out there in the community that we all hear about. So some of these brands is what we did. We went and heard pitches from these companies of why their systems would be really good for us. And we ended up choosing one, and we thought that was the right thing to do. And they said our challenges and data requirements were really the same as everyone else's when we showed them our business. And of course, they've helped a lot of companies. They're very well known. And their capabilities would exceed our vision. That was probably the big thing, that we could get their software and it would do everything we wanted. But in fact, we were wrong. After 2 years of implementation, a lot of cost, and just the impact on sales, adjusting our business to fit the software, we really found we were adjusting our vision and ambitions to fit their capabilities. And that was the hard part for us, actually giving up some of the things we were trying to do because we needed to make it fit the software. And what I actually learned from that was really interesting in hindsight. So everyone always says, you scope out your new software and when you're implementing it, scope it all out, what you want, the whole thing. And you scope it out to make sure it is what they can do. And then, it's quoted on and then it's implemented, and you do everything in one go in that way. And the problem with that, of course, is you don't really touch it. So we were told it was going to be 18 months to implement. That actually dragged out to 2 years. And in that time, though, the worst part of that is that nothing else happened in the business because we'd invested so much. It was, oh no, we need to wait and see what this will do because it may do what we need in another area. So in actual fact, it was 2 years of stagnation, of not being able to grow while we wait for this great software to come. And that was the real hard part for us. And so I actually learned everything at launch implemented in one go is actually not for us. It's not the way to go for us. And I recommend against it. The other thing about it is because you're doing everything in one go, I call it a push approach. You're pushing it on staff. So they know, for us, it was February the 1st, 2020, it was being implemented. And all the staff know on that morning they're coming to work and they've got this new system. Sure, there's been some training on it, but it's going to be a big change. And really, there's not that much collaboration because we spent so long doing the implementation, train them on what we've done, and let's go. And I find that push approach is not the way to really drive a great culture in the business as far as everyone adapting it, which brings me on to limited adaptability. It's actually then resented by staff because they don't really have a say in it. And sometimes they don't see what you're trying to do. So I found that as a negative. The other big thing is being I call it a closed platform, that you scope everything at the start. And as you go through that implementation process, you see things that are actually, you're studying your own business a lot. So you actually see things that might need changing. And that's where we get, of course, scope creep and extra expenses. And it becomes really hard to implement a few of those changes that you actually see you need. And so that fixed scope and closed platform, I ended up pleading with the developers to say, hey, here's what I need. Please make it cheap so I can get it in because I really need it for the business. And if you charge me too much, I won't be able to do that. And the business will suffer. So you're really at their mercy. And I feel that means you feel utterly vulnerable to what they want to charge you for that implementation of that one thing. And so I really resented having just that one supplier. Obviously, the CEO felt the same. And after 4 or 5 months, he said, look, this isn't working. It's not getting any better. It was, to be truthful, getting a bit better. But he said, if we're having this much trouble early on, it's not going to get any better. And he said, let's pull the plug. And it was like, well, what are we going to do? And later that afternoon, he came by. I thought he must have a plan. And he came by and he said, Jamie, what are we going to do? And so I actually didn't have a backup plan, but I had an idea. And I called it Code Brown because it's like, so we're now talking, it was implemented in February. We're now talking July. And he's saying, let's pull the plug. And he had to give a commitment that we were off it by the 31st of October. So it's July. I know we're going off it in October, and I've got no idea what to do. And this is where FileMaker comes into it. So during that implementation process, like I said earlier, when I was scoping something, I actually did it on my FileMaker database and showed them. And what was interesting was at the time they said, we can't do that. And I'm like, what do you mean we can't do it? I've just done it on my little Mac, like I've done it. Surely you can do it. No, we can't do that. So that's where I got this idea and thinking maybe FileMaker Pro, this software that I played with in the early 90s, there might be something in it. And so I started doing research and speaking to a couple of, I had one friend who has it for his business and that opened up my eyes a bit. And the other thing that I found interesting was Claris actually, I must have downloaded a trial version, and they have a process of calling you when you download a trial version and following you up. And this guy actually reached out to me and said, oh, Jamie, you've downloaded a trial version. Can we help? So I actually went back to him, and that's John Matthews from the Claris Sydney office, who I've since met. And I started asking him, oh, but what can FileMaker do? Even though I'd used it, I really didn't know. And he kept saying, yeah, FileMaker can do that. And I'd say, but accounting, like, what do you do for accounting? And he said, oh, you plug in, Xero or MyOb. And And we in the past actually used Xero and the staff loved it. And I went, wow, okay, we could do that. And I said to him silly things like I said, but this is a serious business, John. Like, are you sure that FileMaker can run on that? And I guess that's what a lot of people think, like, what can FileMaker do? And everything I asked him, I now see why. He said, yeah, FileMaker can do that. And so that really was sort of a thing where the main thing was when he actually said, oh, you know, Delta Airlines runs on it or something like that. And I'm like, really? And so, yeah, I started investigating. So I said a little bit of this before, but I've raced cars, so tires are my thing. And I've worked with Max through music and ran dealerships, so selling's my thing. And I used to build with FileMaker, little databases, but I didn't know I could transform a whole business with it. And the beauty of all this is where it's gone from with the other software, which is an out-of-the-box system, to FileMaker and what I've learned from it. And this is where I think it's interesting with FileMaker. So rather than a big scope, we couldn't afford to scope FileMaker the same way and have a budget. And in fact, John actually pointed me to some developers, which I went to. I went to a few different developers and got them to do scopes. One of the scopes that I actually got from Digital Fusion, who we work with now, was fantastic. But the cost, I couldn't give it to Travis because we just spent so much money. He would say no. So I actually buried the whole proposal and thought we need to do this a different way. And so what I actually thought was I need a tool to run my little database I had on my Mac for tires to get that onto the website. And so it started our journey of just doing one little thing that I wanted for myself with a small budget and getting that working for others to see it. So my learnings from that is instead of everything at launch, we just do it in managed modules. And ever since then, that's what we continue to do, just little things at a time. And the difference is amazing. So instead of a push approach, it obviously becomes a pull approach because I now have this little tool that I'm using for the website. Everyone else in the business is seeing it because I'm actually showing it. I'm really proud of what we've managed to achieve with this little tool. And so others are saying, oh, can we have that? And in fact, before it was even finished, Travis was saying, we need that for the call center. How can they use that to quote? So of course, we go from this one little thing to now developing something for the call center. And ever since then, that's continues to what we do. So teams demand usage. And so instead of limited adaptability, we're testing and learning constantly. We've done one little thing and we learn more about the business through that. And that flows on to the next thing as we build it. So we're not having to, in hindsight, change things. We're testing and learning. And the greatest thing in the business is that staff are actually giving us their input all the time. And it sort of self-perpetuates because as staff ask about a change, they might see that change come through within a couple of days, and they know that they know that change was them, and they feel like they're rewarded because they've got a say and an input into it, and that generates more ideas and more. So it self-perpetuates. And instead of being a closed platform, it's really, I believe, an open platform. So even I can develop, and I do from time to time, put my little bits in there. And which means instead of a single supplier, knowing how many developers that might be watching this, we've got all of them who could potentially be working in our system. So we feel like we're in control because we can choose who develops with us. And truthfully, the developer knows that we can do that as well. So the service level we get from the Claris partners is, I think, far improved because we have this relationship.
Wow. Having been a developer myself and, kind of have used for rollouts, both that push approach and the small project approach, I can, myself also have had that great experience of modules, small improvements, and getting the input from staff are key. And I do have a question that I'm going to answer, and then I've got one for you as well. So someone sent me a private message saying my whole team needs to see this. Please, I will publish this to YouTube first thing tomorrow morning Eastern time. So just jump on the Claris YouTube site, look at the webinar channel or playlist. We'll also get it up in Claris Academy. And after every community live, everyone who registered and attended will get an email probably early next week, Monday or Tuesday, with the link to the recording, again, to thank you for attending so that you've got that. And the other thing is I'm going to drop into chat the link to the customer story that we did with Mobile Tyre Shop last month. So if you want to share something immediately with your team, go ahead and point them to that story. And then I think this is a really interesting business logistics question for you, Jamie.
Yeah.
And this is more about just growing the business. If tire manufacturers controlled the retail space, did you have pushback from them as you started presenting multiple brands to the public through your website?
Yeah, so tires has been very interesting for me because I really didn't understand the industry, although I was from car dealerships. And I just started putting multiple brands on, like getting authorization and doing it to realize, I didn't realize that most tire shops are affiliated with a manufacturer. And so I was actually and having been in dealerships with franchise models, I could appreciate the sensitivity of them working with us, knowing that we're working with their competitors. I really enjoy that though. So we're very transparent with them in that we put the same margin on every brand. So they know that. We're trying to create a marketplace where they're encouraged to reduce the prices to see their sales increase. And so working with the tire manufacturers has been amazing. And what's been really interesting is they've been watching this growth as well and this journey and what we're doing with the technology. And I'm talking to them all the time about they're wanting to get tips on what we're doing as well to help their business. But I can also say that just around the time of COVID, so I'm talking 2020, 2021, there was some tire manufacturers who wouldn't even allow me to have an Excel spreadsheet. They wanted to give us everything on PDF. They were so scared of sharing stuff. And so we're not talking long ago, we're talking 3 years ago. They were really reluctant to now they're actually feeding our system every couple of hours with price updates or stock updates. And they're actually using it themselves to get their advantages out of it as well. So it's come a long way.
Wow. Yeah. So now let's talk about what was the process. I mean, you mentioned you worked with a partner, so you haven't done all this work yourself. And
yes.
How can you talk about the relationship and that iterative approach and kind of how did you choose what you did first and next and next?
Yeah, so on that story where we got the scope, and the scope was actually too good. I think they worked out our business better than we did with the scope, but the price on it would just never have flown here. So we had to look at doing it in small pieces. And the other big benefit of it that I don't say in the presentation is that you're actually spending proportionately to the reward. So as you do one thing, you're making the budget smaller. So you're getting a reward and a return on that to then see an improvement, which allows us to get the funds for the next month to keep going as well. So I think that's been very good financially, doing it in that way. And what actually happened was I had this big scope. I realized we couldn't do that. So I was looking to do a small piece. But the quote that came back for that was actually big as well, because they were putting everything into it. And so I actually rang some other developers to find out that I could get a developer to hook up my database to our website within about 3 hours. And I actually said to that developer, so for like $1,000, you could actually get this running our website. And he's like, yeah, sure. But he was very flippant. So it was the other extreme. And so I actually went back to Digital Fusion and said, look, I can get a developer just to do this, which I know I could get approved, but I'm worried he's too flippant and it won't work as well. Can we somewhere do something in between? And Digital Fusion said, oh, look, we can do anything. So if that's what you want, let's do that. So we actually, the initial quote was $8,000 to get our database onto the website. And it was quite involved. It was actually updating all the promotions and offers every month, turning them on and off at the right time, and synchronizing all that. So we actually ended up starting with just an $8,000 budget to get going.
And what was can you estimate what was the ROI on that first $8,000?
Well, the truth is, before they only had 2 or 3 weeks to get that up and running, and they hadn't even finished when Travis saw it and went, "Oh my God, this is great. We need the call center to use it to quote." And so all of a sudden there was no, I need a quote for that. It was, oh, let's keep going, because we could see the quality of work. So ROI, I don't think it was that relevant at the time, because we had no choice. I either go back to spreadsheets and uploading them with spreadsheets, which was so dangerous for mistakes, or we had this tool to do it. So ROI wise, it wasn't that relevant then, but what ended up happening after about 6 months, you could actually see that as staff resigned, we might not need to replace them, because it was actually so much more efficient. So one of the metrics we used was, I noticed it was taking about 20 minutes to schedule a job for our schedulers, which doesn't sound long, but when you think that that means they can only do 20 jobs a day, and a van back then was only doing 5 jobs a day, that means you need one scheduler for every 4 vans, which is not scalable. We could not grow to what we needed. We'd have so many schedulers. It was ridiculous. More importantly, that if it takes you 20 minutes just to do a job, you were reluctant to pick up the phone when a customer called, because you might be halfway through, and the mistakes were a big problem. So today we've got that scheduling time down in some cases to around 20 or 30 seconds. And I've got schedulers now doing thousands of jobs a month. So the improvement on ROI on staffing has been fantastic, and customer service. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I think we should probably move on in the presentation. And I think I'm just going to ask you to jump ahead to the beautiful spiral slide.
Yes. Yeah.
I think you've talked through all the things in this
So it's enabled
already.
Yeah, it's enabled us to have build a series of connected interfaces, which is the big thing for us. And so it comes on to that journey of where we started with that web interface. So that's where we started. And then we learned, wow, we could plug this into a Rego lookup tool that was supplied by a company called Vehicle Logic. And that would actually tell us the tires for the customers on the website. So that was the next thing we did, which again was a small project, and rolling that out to a quoting system for all our staff in the call center. So that's where we started. Once we did that, the next phase was this GCID, I call it, and it's where we actually know a customer is on our website. We know from a third party what page they're on and how they got there. But what we wanted to do is actually pass through to Google, once they'd made a purchase, the ID of that customer who's just purchased. And so we can actually self-perpetuate our Google Analytics with the learnings of the sales through the call center, which I don't know if it had ever really been done before when we'd done this back in 2020. And we actually won an award for that. And that was thanks to FileMaker holding that GCID and then passing it through once we'd made the sale. And we did that very early on. From there, we had the demands from our fleet customers to give them portal access to all our pricing and quoting. So we built a fleet portal that has been amazing. And that's using WebDirect with FileMaker, which is a great product for letting customers access into our system. The big thing that means is that we don't have to schedule our customers' jobs. They're actually doing it for us, which is fantastic. And they feel like they've got control. They can see all the tires. They can see our scheduling, and it gives them great ability to help their businesses. From there, we added in our call system, which we use Ring Central, and we use that to pop up the name of a customer calling in. And when they call in, a bit like an iPhone really, where it says who it may be, once we say, yep, show us that, it will show us all the information and all the jobs that that customer's currently got or has had with us. From there, this answers a question of one of your watches is the inventory. So I must say early on, Travis was onto me, we need barcoding in the warehouse. We need it. And I kept saying, it's too early, Travis. You need to wait. We haven't got enough built. And finally, at one stage, he asked me again, and I said, I reckon we can start it now. So we did. We started doing an inventory system from scratch. And Kath at Digital Fusion and myself have never done stock control like this before, but together we worked out a system that is absolutely amazing, where we track every individual item from the time we raise a purchase order, from the time it arrives at our warehouse, it gets checked in and a barcode is printed out and labeled on the tire. And then we can see anyone who's touched the tire through the whole journey. In fact, later on, when we introduced a customer self-scheduling portal through WebDirect, we have it so that when the tire is received in the warehouse, it automatically texts the customer to say, hey, great news, your tires have arrived, book yourself in, and they choose the time that they want those tires fitted. So it's all automated from this barcoding. It's been amazing. From there, we ended up doing our job scheduling and rolling it out to our schedulers. So up until this stage, we actually were running two systems. We were running FileMaker with what we'd done from the start, and we were running the old system. But at this point, we started getting rid of the old system for the schedulers and putting them onto FileMaker. From there, we realized that communication about customers and complaints and points of interest on jobs was getting lost in Slack or Teams. And we needed to bring it all together so you have a central source of information. And together with Kath, she came up with this idea to make it look like live chat. So internally in the business, FileMaker is looking like live chat when we're communicating about a customer. And it's actually stamping who it is in the business and the time that they actually did this communication. And that's been a fantastic thing that we've rolled out across the business.
And
From there,
stop you for a second? There's a couple of questions. So one, going back to the inventory and barcoding is, have you considered going to RFID to eliminate the need to scan things?
The problem with RFID is it doesn't put a label on the tire. So on the tire, our label actually has a job number and what it's for, and some other information such as ID and whatever. We actually considered RFID at the start because it would mean that no tire leaves the warehouse without knowing that it's left. But it's a bit difficult to actually, we need a label on it. So the barcode was simple. And the other thing is with iPhone scanning, the barcodes are very, very accurate. So that's been very positive.
Sure. Very good. And the other, you said, at the very beginning, you weren't really thinking about ROI. But can you, as you've gone through all the things you've done, can you talk about how did you prioritize what you would do? I know you said the big pain point was that web interface and you knew it was small, so it was a good starting point. But then what criteria have you used to kind of figure out what's next?
Well, it's almost been by feel. So once we had the web interface, of course, the CEO is saying, we need something for the call center. Can you get this for the call center? So that's obvious because you're then adding pricing and some other things that you need. It's more about what was demanded at the time from what you see evolve. And this is what I like about doing it in small modules is it's almost like it lights up the path as you go. So at some stages, you don't know where you're going to go next, but you see something develop and you realize what you can then do with that. So it's a bit like the barcoding of tires. Once we're doing that, we realize, we could easily notify a customer that the tires arrived because that's an easy automation. So things actually evolve as we go along. It's not like I had this mapped out at the start. And even today, we're still working that way by demands on the business, keeping in mind that we're trying, our end result is customer satisfaction and making it efficient and scalable. So if it meets that criteria, that's usually the next thing.
Thank you.
Also, sometimes it's just the CEO. He likes bright and shiny things, and he goes, "Oh, I want this," and so we start on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you done anything? I'm just watching the clock. So, yeah, what have you done sort of recently? I know I see AI on there. Can you tell us about
Well,
that one?
if I move around the the other thing is the OCR, that technology of putting optical character recognition in FileMaker. We were scanning thousands of invoices for purchase orders to supplier invoices every month, and that reduced staff immensely in finance. So that was a great thing. Route scheduling was a big thing where we actually saved more than an hour a day, which equals another job a day. So it took all our vans to 6 jobs a day by introducing Google Maps into the system for automating the schedules. Someone mentioned earlier about the mobile side of it. So that was the next thing we did after route scheduling. We could then give this to all our technicians. So they've actually got FileMaker Go in their hands, and they're using a mobile version of our app that seamlessly integrates. So it shows them everything. That's of course been an important part of it. Your AI integration is something we did just this year, and that's been amazing. And I mean, there's a lot of talk about AI, and it's also how do you actually, like, where will it benefit us? What things can you actually do with it? Well, a simple one, I think it was even suggested by Kath, was a little idea where we could actually, our tyre fitters are sending text messages to customers. And I mean, you're on a small device. Their spelling and grammar may not be the best. And you're sending this message to customers, and sometimes they're not really in a way we would like to present them. So this idea of removing the send button from their messages inside FileMaker and replacing it with a submit button, and that sends a text message to ChatGPT and returns 3 options. And we've prompted the 3 options slightly different to give a similar tone of voice, but one may be more loose than another, one may be more formal. And it gives the technician the ability to choose which one he would like. So it still lets them put a little bit of character on the text message, but it makes sure that they're spelt correctly, grammar's correct, and everything going to the customer is correct. So that's been a huge thing we did just in January, February this year.
Yeah, and there's one other question that came in, and that is when you're exchanging data with getting data from the tire manufacturers, and I think other suppliers, are you doing that integration with APIs now, or are they like how what's the data flow for those updates?
Yeah, we use various methods. So we use APIs, webhooks, and also FTP servers or SFTP servers. So we have a variety of different ways because we're dealing with so many manufacturers that they all have their different ways. And I think this is one of the strengths of FileMaker is that it can connect to anything. So we choose which way we're going to do it based on what they are doing. It gives us the flexibility. So we use whatever method we need to.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, and if just finishing off this slide, Rosemary, so transactional communications is a huge thing with customers. All along the way, it's automated. And we know this method has been the right way to go because in the end, we've won the 2024 award from Product Review for the #1 tyre store in Australia for reviews. So I think now we're almost up to 5,000 5-star reviews since then. So it's been fantastic. And there's a little shot of all the integrations we've got. There might be some missing that we've just done recently, but yeah, many integrations in there.
Yeah, and there's just this is a super tactical question. How many servers are you running?
I believe we're just on the one server. Yep. It's with Amazon, AWS.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have any test and development environments, or does Digital Fusion provide that for
Yes.
you?
Yes, they do all that. Yes. Yep.
Okay. And I'll just add, it seems like a good place to mention it, that in 2 weeks, Kath and Craig
Yeah.
from Digital Fusion will be joining me on Community Live to talk about, kind of go a little deeper on some of the technical aspects of their collaboration with Mobile Tyre Shop. So I know we hear a lot from developers that you love customer stories, but you want to see the nuts and bolts and hear the technical war stories. So we're hoping that you will join us for that.
And I'd
It will
encourage
be a
everyone
little
to ask
earlier
Kath,
in the day.
I'd encourage everyone to ask Kath really hard questions. I like that.
Sounds good. And I know she's listening, so hopefully she'll be prepared.
So in the end, the big points that I like to emphasize, the big results of FileMaker in our business is that, come back to that tire size, no one actually types it anymore. It's all automated right from the start through to the end, which reduces mistakes. Not only does it save time. Our warehousing stock takes used to take 3 days to do a warehouse with 2 people, and let alone the week of mental preparation. Now it's just 20 minutes with this barcoding. Travel times reduced, of course. Less support staff needed for a better result. And we've now become, instead of a call center focused business, it's actually an e-commerce online digital business. We work with some of our competitors to fit tires for them because it seamlessly integrates with them as well. And new partnerships that we're exploring all the time. And our big thing is that there wasn't a template for this business, and now there is. And so we're talking to a lot of different people around from different countries about how we can actually help them with our software in their businesses. And it's not just tires either that we've been exposed to. So we went from why we were wrong to why we were right, Rosemary. So instead of 2 years of implementation, we had 2 years of constant improvement, which was a big change. And just with an $8,000 initial budget, we've managed to increase sales since using FileMaker Pro by 209%. But the big one is our vision and business will never outgrow our platform.
Well, congratulations. I just want to share, there's a comment that this is absolutely impressive. So kudos to you. And also, we do have another poll open, and be sure to hit the submit button. And this is really more for all of you who are listening to think about. If you don't want to tell us, you don't have to. But has this presentation, what's the improvement that you are inspired to make because you attended this live stream? What are you going to take back to the business that you support or run and say, we need to do this now? So we'd love to hear it, but if you don't want to tell us, we understand. So yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
The other big thing I think that's important to let others know is that this software ends up protecting your IP. It becomes your IP in a way, and it protects your IP. And it actually reduces other business being able to copy what you do because it's actually laid out in the software. So it actually, it enhances the intellectual property of the business. And just in summary, wrapping it up, Rosemary, it's really thanks to FileMaker Pro, we are actually a tire store for the digital age. That's the big thing. And if I can actually finish with the customer's perspective on what the customers actually find from all this, I'll play this.
Tire store that comes to you. I'd never heard of it. I mean, when I think of Mobile Tyre Shop, I think of a brick building with clunky tools and greasy staff that somehow steering their store down the street. But then I started seeing all the reviews online from all the people who had their tires changed at work or at home for free after getting the best deals online with Mobile Tyre Shop. And I thought, I'll give that a go. I'm very impressed. They had the best brands at the best prices, and I got to choose a fitting time and a location that was best for me. It's all very clean and professional, and it's all on my terms. I can stand here and keep an eye on every step of the process, or I can get on with what I'm supposed to be doing, such as... What did I say? Mummy needs to be an influencer for a moment. What was I saying? Now that I've used Mobile Tyre Shop, there's just no need to go to a tyre store ever again. It's just a great idea.
That's it.
Yes, and as I said earlier, I can't wait till the next time I need tires, where I will find the Boston area Mobile Tyre Shop and get them to come to me. And Angie, I don't know if you want to come on camera and share some of the improvements our audience says they're going to take back. And will you pull that together? I just dropped the link for our session in 2 weeks with Digital Fusion. And also, just to kind of foreshadow out into September and October, we're planning a bit of a back to school technical series for Community Live. In early September, we'll be joined by Mark LaRochelle for a course of JSON fundamentals. So if you want to be able to do all these fabulous integrations, the fundamental building block you need is JSON. So we're going to go back to school on JSON. And then 2 weeks after that, Bob Bowers from Soliant will join us to talk about transactions and using the new transaction features that we've introduced in the last few versions of FileMaker. Yeah, so Angie, any
Sure,
big
yes.
improvement?
So, hey everyone, thanks for your input. We've got some things like using Mobile Go, and I'll need to make FileMaker Go /WebDirect UI pretty and colorful. Reviewing the mindset of test and learn as we go. Exploring integrating Ring Central and Microsoft Office. More opportunities to apply FileMaker to my business. Connect to many external systems. Implement incrementally was a key takeaway from people, it sounds like, Jamie.
Yeah.
The fact that this can really be done and that FileMaker is the secret sauce.
Well,
The last one is taking back that with a small investment, we can just start with one item and build from it.
Yeah, it's the best way.
yeah, well, thank you, Jamie, and thank you to
you.
everybody who joined us today. And just again, you'll get the recording in a few days, and it will be up on YouTube in the morning. I'm not going to stay up late and do it tonight.
Oh, and Rosemary will be posting this to the community. So if you have further questions for Jamie, you can join our community conversation and exchange questions and ideas or whatnot with Jamie and Rosemary.
Yeah.
Sounds
So
great.
thanks again, everyone, and have a great day if you're joining us from Australia, New Zealand, and that part of the world, or a great night if you're somewhere in the Americas. And I will
Thank you.
see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.